Guys, we're friends, right? Well, the sign of a true friend is when they discover something good, they share it with you. And that's what I'm gonna do today. This is Loretta's British Ginger Tea. It is amazing. It's got 100% ginger, cinnamon, elderberry, and Manuka honey. Gotta admit, don't know what Manuka honey is, not even sure what it does for you, but it just sounds healthy, so I need some. This tea is fantastic for boosting your immune system, helps you feel good, and you'll live out loud like our beautiful British friend Loretta Nakwacha. Please hit her up on Instagram, order some of this tea, and she is at farmers markets and pop-up shops everywhere. You gotta get some of this stuff. Not only is it good for you, but it tastes great. Loretta's British Ginger Tea. I got some, you need it too. Go and order now.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Bob Lee from 107.5 WBLS and the Make the Grade Foundation for Education. You're listening to Rudy Radio.
The views and opinions expressed during this program are entirely those of the show's hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of Rude Rangers Entertainment, its investors, management, advertisers, or staff.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Acupuncture is My Life. Now, today's discussion should be quite interesting. Why do I say that is because I'm going to take a step out of the normal way of doing things and discuss a paired organ relationship, whereas one is a yin organ to an acupuncturist and the other is a yang organ to an acupuncturist, but neither one of these are actual organs when it comes to Western medicine. Now, one you may have heard of, and the other, more than likely, you have not, unless you're seeing an acupuncturist on a regular basis, which you should be. Regular wellness visits with your acupuncturist and your annual exams with your physician, or even semi-annual. You remove a lot of burden or weight from your shoulders when it comes to health. And this is why I say this in so many of my discussions. Now, in this episode, I'm going to discuss the functions of the pericardium as a yin organ and the functions of the sanjiao as a yang organ. And I'm sure a lot of you are like, what is he talking about? Okay, the pericardium in Western medicine is a layer that wraps the heart. It sort of protects the heart. But now the sanjiao, there's no such organ and when it comes to Western medicine. Now the pericardium is not an actual organ when it comes to Western medicine, but to an acupuncturist it is. Why? Because symptoms relative to disharmony or imbalance of yin and yang can result. And the sanjiao, well, san in Chinese means three. Now, there are three jiaos in the body. There's an upper jiao, which contains the heart, the lungs, and the pericardium. And there's the middle jiao, which contains the spleen and stomach, the most important area in the body. And I know you guys are sick of hearing me speak about the spleen and stomach, but those two organs are super, super important. Something goes terribly wrong with the spleen and stomach, and you can pretty much count life over, in my opinion, because it's responsible for post-heaven chi. the spleen absorbs and stomach absorb the essence from the foods. And keep in mind, I'm not talking about processed foods, but from the foods, good foods, quality foods, quality carbs and fats and proteins from the foods in which you ingest. Your middle jiao, which is comprised of the spleen and stomach, extracts the natural essences from these foods, and stomach chi sends what's not usable down to exit the body. Spleen chi goes up. Spleen chi sends the essence up to the heart and the lungs to create blood and chi and proper nourishment to circulate throughout the body, to afford it its energies to function. It's your middle jiao. And then your lower jiao, this is why it's called san jiao. San is 3. Your lower jiao is comprised of your liver and your kidneys, bladder, and so forth. Gallbladder. So this is why I said it's important to understand the functions of the yin and yang organs from an acupuncturist perspective. And anytime you feel you're getting lost or whatever, you can always go to the Acupuncture is My Life YouTube channel, or even rewind and go back to previous episodes discussing the functions of the internal organs. And this isn't following Western concept, okay, as understood by an acupuncturist. But what I'm going to need you to do right now, as I've said in past episodes, before discussing the functions of the pericardium as well as the san jiao, I need you to momentarily attempt to block your understanding of the Western concept of the internal organs completely. Okay? Now, just as in Western medicine, the pericardium is a membrane that wraps around the heart. But to an acupuncturist, the pericardium also governs blood as well as it houses a person's mind, just like the heart. More times than not, your mental, your mind, your shin resides in the heart. Now, the pericardium to an acupuncturist can also invigorate as well as cool down a person's blood, along with stimulating and calming a person's mind. And that's the main reason when I see someone is suffering from emotional or mental issues, I always needle points on the pericardium meridian. Because needling points on the meridian that represents the pericardium, that is represented by the pericardium, it tends to calm and relax a person. But now, in discussing the pericardium as an organ to an acupuncturist, the pericardium protects the heart from exterior pathogenic factors. You see, so you really can hear of heart cold, heart damp, things of that nature. The pericardium would be affected by exterior pathogenic factors before the heart would. Well, usually the heart just wouldn't. Okay. The pericardium presents with many of the same functions as the heart, which make it of secondary importance to the heart from an acupuncturist perspective. So when you get a moment, check out my video on the functions of the heart on the Acupuncture is My Life YouTube channel. You see, the pericardium mimics its functions a great deal due to its anatomical location to the heart. As I stated, it's a membrane that wraps around the heart to protect it. Now, when it comes to the Sanjiao as an organ, albeit somewhat fictitious, simply because a yang organ is needed to pair with the pericardium as a yin organ, it does not actually have any form, and it's actually not an organ. And as I stated earlier, it basically just covers 3 areas of the body. Like it said, the upper part, which consists of the heart, lungs, and pericardium. The middle part, which consists of the spleen and stomach. And the lower part, which is the lower jiao. It's 3 jiaos: upper jiao, middle jiao, and lower jiao, which houses the kidneys, liver, bladder, gallbladder, and so forth. You see, the Sanjiao to an acupuncturist controls the transportation and the penetration of qi, as well as it controls the water passages and excretion of fluids. So sometimes when fluids are not flowing properly throughout the body, and there may be edema or stagnation of body fluids in a particular jiao, there are points on the Sanjiao meridian that an acupuncturist would needle to reinvigorate the proper flow and functions of the water passages, as well as transportation and penetration of qi. So movement of qi to some extent falls under the control of the Sanjiao meridian as well, which is why I say see a local acupuncturist. Because when you sit with them and you're possibly, I hope not, I hope you'd just be going for a wellness visit, but possibly suffering from a particular disorder, he or she may have to needle the Sanjiao meridian, and he or she will thoroughly explain it to you as to what's going on. My explaining the functions is that, once again, when I'm discussing diseases, to be interpreted from an acupuncturist perspective, so that when I'm explaining to you how it's treated by an acupuncturist, it becomes real simple. Okay? Now, when it comes to, let's say, pathologies or patterns of the pericardium, the heart and the pericardium are really, really closely related, but they do have their differences. Okay? They do have their differences. The pericardium, more times than not, is affected by mental and emotional strain. And it reflects or presents itself, for the most part, in the upper jiao, in the chest area, where most times you'll feel like oppression of the chest, a feeling of stuffiness of the chest, or a feeling of distension of the chest, or even chest pain. And you know, there are other characteristics that differentiate the heart from the pericardium. Is the fact that the pericardium also has involvement with the lungs because of its location. And its influence on qi of the chest. So pericardium symptoms may present with symptoms of, let's say, shortness of breath and even cold hands. Another characteristic that differentiates the pericardium from the heart when it comes to pathologies or patterns is that when a person experiences acute fevers, it's usually the pericardium that's been affected. Remember that. It's very important. You must remember that. Now, when it comes to, let's say, an exterior pathogenic factor such as heat, and sometimes when exterior heat affects the body and turns into interior heat, it usually affects the pericardium and not the heart. That's another difference. Now, all right, let me give you some examples while we're on the topic of exterior heat. When a person, let's say, is experiencing heat in the pericardium, they would experience, let's say, fever at night with mental confusion, incoherent speech, or even aphasia. Their body will be hot. Their hands and feet will be cold. And there can be even some cases of delirium, and if you know anyone that's ever experienced those symptoms, that's a sign of heat in the pericardium. Now, to an acupuncturist, a red tongue with no coating and fever at night, and in some cases delirium, is enough for an acupuncturist to understand that there's heat in the pericardium. Now, what can cause this, as I'd stated, it can be the body being affected by wind heat as an exterior or external pathogenic factor. Now, this wind heat gets into the body, into the interior, and as I said, it transforms into internal heat. And an acupuncturist knows to clear out this heat that's affected the body. Now, the pericardium can also suffer from blood deficiency, where, let's say, a person can experience a feeling of stuffiness and discomfort in the chest, right? And there can be even be a dull ache in that area as well, with some shortness of breath, heart palpitations, insomnia, dizziness, anxiety, poor memory, dream disturbed sleep, and can easily be startled. And it will also present like with this pale stumbling on words here. They'll also present, I need some tea, green tea, but they can also present with this pale complexion that appears as dull, quite dull. Now, blood deficiency of the pericardium is usually tied to emotional strain, because I'd said earlier, just like the heart, the pericardium also houses the mind, because the pericardium is the protector of the heart. So a lot of its functions are similar. So if you ever present with some of these symptoms, understand that it's blood deficiency of the pericardium. And what can cause that is, like I stated, emotional strain such as grief and sadness. And this is usually as a result of being heartbroken. And I've even had patients come into the Acupuncture My Life clinic here in New York City presenting with these symptoms. Again, stuffiness and discomfort in the chest, sometimes even with a dull ache, aching sensation in the area, some shortness of breath. They can't sleep at night, sometimes feeling dizzy. They wake up in the middle of the night, memory is going bad. I know just from insomnia with discomfort in the chest and heart palpitations, there's a strong possibility of blood deficiency of the pericardium. So if you ever experience those sensations And see, I love giving examples of patterns so that when I'm eventually actually talking about diseases, whether it's autoimmune or chronic illnesses, whatever, there'll be some symptoms where you'll say, hey, I remember that symptom. That's like spleen chi deficiency, or this is blood deficiency of the pericardium, or lung chi deficiency, or kidney yin deficiency. That's the purpose of me explaining this. Then it all comes together when it's time to think about yin and yang. And some of my patients enjoy it because they'll come in attempting to self-diagnose. And it's cool. It's cool. I mean, the brain is working, and they put two and two together to understand the importance of yin and yang being balanced in order for the body to self-regulate. And they become conscious of, or they become aware that, wow, this internal organ could be suffering from yang deficiency, yin deficiency, excess of yang, excess of yin. Blood deficiency, which is yin, because blood is nourishing. Qi is what moves the blood, which can be considered yang. It's the purpose of me explaining the functions of each and every internal organ from an acupuncturist perspective. Now, when it comes to blood deficiency of the pericardium, an acupuncturist may look to nourish blood, strengthen the pericardium as well as the heart, along with invigorating qi and blood in the chest. Now, the pericardium can also suffer from extreme heat, like it's just so much heat that it's the equivalent of fire. Like, whoa, it's hot. You could even say pericardium fire, so that you can understand its extreme heat in the pericardium, where there will be palpitations, tightness, and heat in the chest, and your chest may hurtle. You'll find yourself breathing rather quickly. There'll be mouth and tongue ulcers. You'll be thirsty a lot, agitated. You'll feel hot. There'll be mental restlessness, insomnia, dream disturbed sleep, and bitter taste in the mouth. I've had patients walk in and say, Doc, I had this bitter taste in my mouth after I woke up. And for women, they'll experience heavy periods too. And I'll ask them questions like, did you feel any tightness in your chest or rapid breathing? Check the mouth for ulcers. Are they presenting as agitated? Is there heat? Palpate different areas of the body, especially along the pericardium meridian. And hey, could diagnose them as not even extreme heat of the pericardium. I'll just stick with pericardium fire, just so you know that things are really hot. But just palpitations, bitter taste, insomnia, and even tightness in the chest is enough for me to determine pericardium fire. I mean, this can be the result of, let's say, emotional strain. Because emotions that affect the heart tend to cause qi stagnation in the heart. And after a period of time, this can turn into heat and then extreme heat, but we'll stick with the word fire. And emotions that can cause this is like grief, worry, anger, sadness, resentment, guilt, frustration. Emotional strain can cause it, especially when it's bottled in. That's what makes it so hot. And also your diet. Eating tons of red meat, hot foods, drinking lots of alcohol. This can contribute to the formation of this extreme heat, or again, fire. So in a case like that, I can look to drain this fire of the heart and the pericardium to clear up this pattern. But more times than not, patterns usually aren't exclusive. They accompany other patterns of other meridians. But I'm just breaking them down to you one by one, separately, so that you'll begin to notice combination patterns in the future as I'm talking about, or, getting into different diseases. Now, phlegm can create this extreme heat that affects the pericardium too. And especially in Western society, individuals have issues with the overproduction of phlegm based on their diet. All right? So this phlegm creating extreme heat that affects the pericardium can present with, again, heart palpitations, oppression in the hot chest, and oppressed in hot chest is annoying, with chest pain, bitter taste, red face, thirsty, fast breathing, and they tend to expectorate a lot of phlegm, especially thick yellow phlegm. And there'll be a rattling sound in the throat. There'll be some insomnia or dream disturbed sleep, mental restlessness, agitation, mental confusion, rash behavior, tendency to hit or even yell at people, uncontrolled laughter or crying, shouting, muttering, mental depression, and even manic behavior. If you know someone that is presented with these symptoms, that could be a sign of this extreme heat, phlegm heat, harassing the pericardium. What can cause this emotional strain? Is one, emotions affect the pericardium, and I've said this a few times during this podcast. Any of the emotions that, again, affect the heart can cause chi stagnation of the heart. And when it's bottled up, it tends to turn into heat, and in extreme heat, fire. Again, sadness, grief, anger, worry, frustration, resentment can play a part. And diet, remember? Just a few seconds ago, diet. Hot, greasy foods, fried chicken and stuff like that leads to the formation of phlegm. All right? And you get this a lot in Western society. A lot. And I've traveled and practiced acupuncture in China, Africa, the Netherlands, Canada, South America. But you see, to treat this extreme phlegm heat, I would drain this fire or extreme heat of the pericardium and the heart and look to resolve the phlegm and calm the mind, because individuals with this pattern tend to become highly agitated. Another can be stagnation, chi stagnation in the pericardium, where you'll feel distension and slight pain in the chest, tightness in the chest, shortness of breath, feeling of a lump in your throat. Ever feel that? Does it accompany those symptoms along with sighing, palpitations, irritability, depression, poor appetite, cold limbs? That can be a sign of chi stagnation in the pericardium. Again, this develops as a result of emotional strain, again, such as sadness, grief, guilt, worry. That tends to ball up chi, knot it, into a round knot in the chest, leading to chi stagnation in that area. And that's where the discomfort in the chest will come from. And as an acupuncturist, I could look to invigorate chi in the chest, to regulate the pericardium and heart, and calm the mind. Notice I used the word regulate. Gotta balance yin and yang. There's yin and yang in every organ. All right? And it's about that balance. A person can also experience blood stasis of the pericardium. Now, this feels like a heart attack, because there's this stabbing pain in the chest that tends to radiate to the inner aspect of a person's left arm, their shoulder, and they'll feel like the sensation of contraction of the chest. There'll be shortness of breath. cyanosis of the lips, nails, they'll turn blue. There'll be cold hands. In women, there'll be painful periods with dark clots. Eerily similar to a heart attack. To an acupuncturist, it's blood stasis of the pericardium. Where now I know I may have to move blood in the chest, regulate the pericardium in the heart, and calm the mind. Because a lot of that can stem from emotional problems. Anxiety, guilt over a long period of time. The chest is affected by emotions, pent-up emotions, which tend to disturb the mind. But all of this, seeing an acupuncturist for regular wellness visits, or even contacting acupuncturists, my wife, you would learn and understand the body and the importance of yin and yang being balanced, among other things. And I mean, you would begin to notice when something is wrong, which is why I recommend seeing an acupuncturist. See an acupuncturist for regular wellness visits. There's no medications, prescriptions for medications. This is about the body being brought back to balance so that it can self-regulate and heal itself. Because the human body is an awesome machine. And in knowing that, you must make acupuncture a part of your life. Because acupuncture is my life. What's yours?